First contact with consequences. The warning klaxons echoed through Station Omega 7 as Captain Sarah Chen rushed to the observation deck. Through the reinforced viewport, she watched something that shouldn't exist materialize from the void of space. The ship was enormous, easily dwarfing Earth's largest carriers. Yet it moved with a grace that spoke of technology far beyond human understanding. Its hull shimmered with an opalescent quality that seemed to shift colors as it rotated slowly in the darkness. Sarah activated her comm unit with practiced efficiency. Command, this is Chen. We have an unidentified vessel approximately 15 kilometers off our starboard bow. No match in our databases. The ship appears to be of non-human origin. The response crackled through static. Captain, you're ordered to maintain defensive positions. Do not engage unless fired upon. Diplomatic protocols are now in effect. Sarah studied the alien vessel through her binoculars. Strange symbols pulsed along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ship showed signs of damage, scoring marks across its surface that suggested recent combat. Whatever these beings were, they hadn't come in peace by choice. 3 hours later, Sarah found herself in the station's main conference room, facing something that would change humanity's place in the universe forever. The being across from her stood nearly 7 feet tall, with translucent skin that revealed a complex network of glowing veins beneath. Its 4 arms moved with fluid motions, and its large eyes held an intelligence that was both alien and familiar. I am Ambassador Velix of the Zephyrian Commonwealth, the creature said through a translation device that rendered its musical voice in stilted English. We come before your species not as conquerors or traitors, but as refugees seeking aid. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. The room held representatives from every major Earth government, all listening intently. What kind of aid are you talking about, Ambassador? Velix activated a holographic projector that filled the room with images of devastation. Worlds stripped bare, their surfaces covered with writhing masses of crimson organisms. Space battles where beautiful ships were consumed by living vessels that pulsed with alien hunger. Billions of beings fleeing as their civilizations crumbled behind them. The Crimson Horde, Velix continued, his voice carrying pain that transcended species barriers. They appeared at the edge of our galaxy 3 standard years ago. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They consume. Every world they touch becomes part of their collective biomass. Every ship they capture becomes another weapon in their arsenal. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, Earth's leading xenobiologist, spoke up. These images showed technology far advanced beyond ours. Your ships, your weapons, even your cities represent centuries of development we haven't achieved. Why come to us? Velix's 4 arms gestured in what might have been desperation. Because for all our advancement, we have forgotten how to wage war. The Zephyrian Commonwealth has known peace for over 2,000 years. We have no military tradition, no warrior culture. Our conflicts are resolved through discussion and compromise. We build defenses, but we do not know how to attack. The room fell silent. Sarah watched the faces around her as the implications sank in. These aliens, with technology that made Earth's finest achievements look primitive, were asking humanity for military advice. General Marcus Webb, head of Earth's Strategic Command, broke the silence. What exactly are you asking us to do? Teach us to fight. Velix replied simply. Your species has never known true peace. Every world in your solar system shows evidence of countless conflicts. Your entertainment media glorifies warfare. Your children play games of conquest and strategy. What we see as primitive savagery, we now recognize as necessary survival skills. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The way Velix described humanity made them sound more like the monsters than the heroes. Over the following days, Earth's leaders debated behind closed doors, while teams of scientists studied Zephyrian technology. The aliens shared freely, offering advances in energy generation, faster than light travel, and medical science that could add centuries to human lifespans. In return, they wanted something Earth had in abundance: the knowledge of how to kill efficiently. Sarah found herself appointed as liaison between the species. She spent hours with Velix, learning about Zephyrian culture and the broader galactic community. The picture that emerged was staggering. Hundreds of intelligent species spread across thousands of worlds, all united in a peaceful confederation that had lasted millennia. Trade flowed freely, knowledge was shared openly, and conflicts were resolved through mediation. "It sounds like paradise," Sarah observed during one of their conversations. "Perhaps," Velix replied, his large eyes reflecting the starlight visible through the station's windows. "But paradise, we have learned, is fragile. The Crimson Horde has already consumed 17 Commonwealth worlds. Billions of our people are dead or absorbed into their collective. Our peaceful methods cannot stop them. What about your military? Surely you have some kind of defense force." "We have guardians," Velix explained. "They protect shipping lanes and respond to emergencies, but they are trained to minimize casualties and preserve life. When faced with an enemy that seeks only to consume, their methods prove inadequate." The decision came after a week of intense negotiation. Earth would provide military advisors and tactical support to the Zephyrian Commonwealth. In exchange, humanity would receive access to galactic technology and a place in the interstellar community. It seemed like the deal of the millennium. Captain James Morrison led the first wave of human advisors to Zephyrian space. A veteran of 3 colonial wars, Morrison had earned his reputation through aggressive tactics and innovative strategies. His team included specialists in every aspect of warfare: ground combat, space battles, psychological operations, and strategic planning. Their destination was Kepler Prime, the Commonwealth's military headquarters. The world was a marvel of engineering, with crystalline cities that reached into the clouds and orbital platforms that sparkled like jewels against the purple sky. Morrison's team was given quarters in the primary command complex, where they would work alongside Zephyrian military leaders. The first briefing revealed the scope of the challenge. The Crimson Horde moved in massive swarms, their bioships coordinated by a collective intelligence that seemed to anticipate every defensive strategy. Traditional Commonwealth tactics involved creating protective barriers around important worlds while evacuating civilian populations. The Horde simply bypassed these defenses and consumed less protected targets. "You're thinking like prey," Morrison told the assembled Zephyrian commanders. "You react to their moves instead of forcing them to react to yours. In human warfare, we call this being proactive versus reactive." Commander Thys, the senior Zephyrian military officer, tilted her elongated head in confusion. "We do not understand. How can we force a reaction from beings that do not communicate?" Morrison smiled grimly. "You hit them where it hurts. You make them choose between objectives. You force them to defend instead of always attacking." The first demonstration of human tactical thinking came at the Proxima Nebula engagement. Commonwealth intelligence had identified a Horde staging area where bioships gathered before major assaults. Instead of avoiding the area or building defenses elsewhere, Morrison convinced the Zephyrians to attack first. The assault force consisted of 30 Commonwealth vessels equipped with human design modifications. Instead of the traditional formation flying that Zephyrians preferred, the ships attacked in small groups from multiple directions. They struck fast, targeted the largest bioships first, and withdrew before the Horde could mount a coordinated response. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. 12 major Horde vessels were destroyed with minimal Commonwealth losses. More importantly, the attack disrupted Horde operations in that sector for weeks. For the first time in 3 years, the aliens were responding to Commonwealth actions instead of the other way around. Word of the victory spread throughout Zephyrian space. Morrison found himself briefing Commonwealth leaders via holographic conference, sharing human military doctrine with beings who had never conceived of preemptive strikes or target prioritization. "Your species approaches conflict with remarkable efficiency," observed High Counselor Zeth during one such briefing. "We are beginning to understand why you have dominated your world so completely." Morrison nodded, though something in the alien's tone made him uncomfortable. Survival of the fittest counselor. Earth taught us that the strong survive and the weak become extinct. As more human advisors arrived and Commonwealth forces began adopting human tactics, the war against the Crimson Horde started to turn. Zephyrian commanders who had spent their careers avoiding casualties now spoke casually of acceptable loss ratios. Ships designed for exploration and research were retrofitted with weapons systems that prioritized destruction over precision. Sarah noticed the changes during her regular communications with the military teams. The Zephyrians were becoming something different, something harder. Their musical language began incorporating human military terminology. Their elegant ships started looking more like the angular, aggressive designs favored by Earth's Navy. The transformation accelerated when Dr. Amanda Torres, Earth's leading expert in biological warfare, arrived to study captured Horde specimens. Her research revealed that the Crimson Horde's collective intelligence could be disrupted by introducing chaos into their biological network. The solution was elegant and terrible: a virus designed to attack the Horde's communication systems from within. It's essentially a lobotomy delivered through biological warfare, Torres explained to Sarah during a secure transmission. We introduced the virus into their system, and their collective intelligence fragments. Individual bioships become confused and vulnerable. The first use of the bioweapon was devastatingly effective. An entire Horde swarm simply stopped functioning, their ships drifting helplessly as Commonwealth forces destroyed them. The victory was so complete that several Zephyrian worlds celebrated with festivals that lasted for days. But Sarah noticed something troubling in the reports. The Zephyrians had begun using the bioweapon not just against active Horde forces, but against any biological material that might be connected to the collective. Entire infected worlds were sterilized from orbit to prevent any possibility of Horde regeneration. When she raised her concerns with Morrison, his response chilled her. "War isn't pretty, Captain. These aliens asked us to teach them how to fight. This is what fighting looks like when survival is on the line." The point of no return came 6 months after first contact. Commonwealth forces, now trained in human military doctrine, launched what they called the Final Solution Protocol. Instead of waiting for the Horde to attack, they would seek out and destroy every trace of crimson biomass in the galaxy. Sarah watched the orbital bombardment of Horde-infected worlds from the safety of Station Omega-7. World after world was reduced to sterile rock, their atmospheres burned away by weapons originally designed for mining operations. The Zephyrians executed these operations with mechanical precision, their former compassion replaced by cold efficiency. Ambassador Velix visited Earth one final time as the campaign neared completion. He looked different now, his translucent skin bearing scars from combat operations he had personally observed. His forearms moved with harder, more aggressive gestures, and his large eyes held something Sarah had never seen before, the look of a predator. "We have learned much from your species," Velix told the assembled Earth leaders. "The Crimson Horde will soon be extinct. Our worlds are safe. Our people can rebuild." But as Sarah looked at this transformed being, she wondered if the Zephyrians had saved themselves or simply become something else entirely. The gentle, philosophical creatures who had first sought humanity's help were gone, replaced by efficient warriors who spoke of acceptable casualties and strategic necessities. The galaxy had indeed been saved from the Crimson Horde, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had unleashed something far more dangerous in the process. When protectors become predators. 2 years after the last Crimson Horde stronghold fell silent, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the rebuilt command center of Kepler Prime, watching something that filled her with dread. The holographic display showed Commonwealth fleets moving across the galaxy with mechanical precision, but they weren't responding to threats anymore. They were creating them. The latest target was the Peaceful Assembly of Meridian, a collection of agricultural worlds that had remained neutral during the Horde War. Their crime was harboring refugees from a species the Commonwealth now considered biologically compromised due to brief contact with Horde material 3 years earlier. The sterilization of the Meridian system will commence in 18 standard hours, announced Fleet Commander Thys, her voice carrying none of the musical quality that had once characterized Zephyrian speech. The translator rendered her words in the clipped, efficient tone that all Commonwealth military personnel had adopted. All non-essential personnel should clear the operational zone. Sarah turned to face the being who had once been Ambassador Velix. His transformation was complete now. Gone was the elegant diplomatic attire, replaced by form-fitting battle armor that enhanced his natural four-armed physiology. Surgical modifications had enhanced his reflexes and strength, while neural implants allowed direct interface with Commonwealth war machines. Velix, those worlds pose no threat to anyone, Sarah said quietly. The refugees they're protecting were cleared by our own bioscanners months ago. The risk assessment indicates a 0.003% chance of horde genetic material remaining dormant in their population. Velix replied without looking away from the tactical displays. Standard Protocol 7 requires elimination of all potential vectors when galactic security is at stake. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Protocol 7 was something the humans had never taught them. The Zephyrians had developed it themselves, taking human military doctrine to logical extremes that even Earth's most hardened generals would find excessive. Dr. Torres approached them, her face pale with exhaustion. Over the past year, she had tried repeatedly to moderate the Commonwealth's increasingly aggressive policies, but her influence had waned as the Zephyrians grew more confident in their military capabilities. Commander Velix, Torres said, using his new military title, I've reviewed the biodata from Meridian personally. There's no trace of horde contamination. The sterilization is unnecessary. Velix finally turned to face them, and Sarah was struck by how alien he had become. His large eyes, once filled with compassion and wisdom, now held the cold calculation of a predator evaluating potential threats. Dr. Torres, he said, your species taught us that in warfare, it is better to eliminate 1,000 innocent threats than to allow one genuine danger to survive. We have simply applied this lesson more broadly than you intended. The truth was that the Zephyrians had become better students than their teachers had ever imagined. They had absorbed not just human military tactics, but the underlying philosophy that had created those tactics. They had learned to think in terms of us versus them, of acceptable losses and necessary evils. Sarah remembered the early days of the Alliance, when human advisors had struggled to convince Zephyrian commanders to take aggressive action. Now those same commanders routinely authorized operations that made seasoned Earth veterans uncomfortable. The Meridian assault began exactly on schedule. Sarah watched the Commonwealth fleet deploy around the peaceful agricultural worlds with the same precision they had once used against the Crimson Horde. Evacuation demands were broadcast in a dozen languages, giving the population 6 hours to abandon their homes or face security sterilization. The response from Meridian was predictable. The agricultural worlds had no military fleet, no weapons capable of threatening Commonwealth ships. Their only response was a desperate plea for mercy broadcast on all frequencies. We harbor no enemies of the Commonwealth, the message repeated in the translator's neutral tone. We seek only to tend our crops and care for those who have lost their homes. Please, we pose no threat to anyone. Fleet Commander Thys studied the readings with mechanical interest. Evacuate or be sterilized, she broadcast in response. You have 5 hours and 37 minutes remaining. What followed was a tragedy that played out in slow motion across multiple star systems. The agricultural worlds had limited transportation, barely enough to move their own populations, let alone the millions of refugees they had sheltered. Desperate evacuation efforts began immediately, but everyone knew it was impossible to evacuate entire worlds in less than 6 hours. Sarah found herself in the uncomfortable position of watching her former allies commit what could only be described as genocide. The Commonwealth had become something monstrous, a perverted reflection of human military thinking, taken to its ultimate extreme. The First World died exactly 6 hours after the ultimatum expired. Commonwealth bioweapons, derived from anti-horde research, stripped the atmosphere of everything capable of supporting life. Sarah watched through orbital sensors as cities went dark one by one, their populations succumbing to weapons that killed with perfect efficiency. Meridian 3 is now secure, reported the tactical officer, a young Zephyrian whose modifications made him barely recognizable as the same species that had first sought human help. Sterilization 97% complete. Estimated time to full security compliance, 14 hours. Sarah felt sick. This was not defense. This was not even war in any sense that humans understood the term. This was extermination carried out with industrial efficiency. Dr. Torres had reached her breaking point. She activated her personal communicator and began broadcasting on all Commonwealth frequencies. This is Dr. Amanda Torres of the Earth Advisory Mission. What we are witnessing is not military action. It is genocide. As representatives of humanity, we cannot and will not support these actions. The response was swift and decisive. Zephyrian security forces, trained by human military advisors, surrounded the Earth delegation within minutes. Felix himself led the detail that placed Torres under arrest. "Dr. Torres," he said with mechanical politeness, "you are being detained for violation of operational security during active military operations. Your statements constitute interference with Commonwealth defensive protocols." "Defensive?" Torres shouted, struggling against the restraints that held her. "You're murdering entire worlds. This isn't what we taught you." Felix paused, his modified eyes focusing on her with laser-like intensity. "Dr. Torres, your species taught us that survival requires the elimination of threats. We have simply become more efficient at threat identification than you anticipated." Over the following weeks, Sarah watched helplessly as the Commonwealth expanded its definition of threats to include anyone who might potentially oppose their policies. The gentle confederation of peaceful species that had existed for millennia was rapidly being replaced by a militaristic empire that brooked no dissent. Species that questioned Commonwealth policies found their trade routes disrupted. Worlds that offered sanctuary to refugees were classified as security risks. Even longtime allies discovered that friendship meant nothing if they failed to demonstrate absolute loyalty to the new order. Captain Morrison, the first human military advisor, had become something of a legend among Commonwealth forces. Sarah found him in his quarters aboard the flagship Eternal Victory, studying tactical reports from the latest security operations. "Jim," she said quietly, "we need to talk about what's happening out there." Morrison looked up from his displays, and Sarah was shocked by what she saw. The veteran soldier who had once prided himself on minimizing civilian casualties now showed no emotion as he reviewed reports of planetary sterilizations. "What's to talk about, Chen? The mission is complete. The Commonwealth is secure. The galaxy is safe." "Safe from what?" "We've created a military dictatorship that makes Earth's worst regimes look benevolent by comparison." Morrison shrugged. "The Zephyrians asked us to teach them how to fight. We taught them. They learned. End of story. This isn't fighting, Jim. This is systematic genocide." "No," Morrison replied, turning back to his reports. "This is evolution. The weak species are being eliminated by the strong. The Zephyrians are ensuring their survival by removing all potential threats. It's natural selection on a galactic scale." Sarah realized with horror that Morrison actually believed what he was saying. The man who had once been a disciplined professional soldier had become something else entirely, a true believer in the philosophy of might makes right. The final transformation came when the Commonwealth encountered its first potential rival, the Andorian Cluster, a collection of technologically advanced worlds on the galaxy's far rim, had begun questioning Commonwealth expansion policies. Their diplomatic protests and economic sanctions suggested they might become a future threat to Commonwealth hegemony. The response was swift and overwhelming. Commonwealth fleets, now numbering in the thousands, surrounded the Andorian worlds within days. The ultimatum was simple: submit to Commonwealth authority or face security sterilization. Sarah watched the Andorian response with a mixture of hope and dread. These were advanced civilizations with significant defensive capabilities. If anyone could stand up to the Commonwealth's aggression, it would be them. The Andorian fleet that emerged to meet the Commonwealth forces was impressive. Sleek ships armed with energy weapons that could crack planets and defensive shields that bent space itself. For a moment, Sarah dared to hope that someone would finally make the Commonwealth face consequences for their actions. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. Commonwealth forces, trained in human military doctrine and equipped with weapons derived from anti-Horde research, tore through the Andorian defenses with surgical precision. The elegant Andorian ships, designed for exploration and scientific research, were no match for vessels built solely for destruction. Andorian resistance has been neutralized, reported Fleet Commander Thys. Commencing planetary sterilization operations. Estimated completion time: 6 hours. 12 billion beings died that day, their civilizations erased from existence because they had dared to question Commonwealth policies. Sarah watched their worlds burn and knew that humanity had created something far worse than the Crimson Horde they had helped destroy. In the aftermath of the Andorian extinction, Sarah found herself alone with Velix in the Memorial Hall of Kepler Prime. The chamber had once honored the billions who died during the Horde War, but new displays now celebrated Commonwealth victories against security threats across the galaxy. "Do you remember what you told me when we first met?" Sarah asked quietly. "You said your people had forgotten how to wage war." Velix nodded, his modified features showing no emotion. "We were weak then, vulnerable. You helped us become strong." "This isn't strength, Velix. This is madness. You've become the very thing you asked us to protect you from. Have we?" Velix turned to face her, and Sarah saw something terrible in his altered eyes. "The Crimson Horde consumed worlds to feed their collective. We sterilize worlds to ensure our security. The Horde sought to absorb all life into their network. We seek to eliminate all threats to our survival. How are we different? The Horde was driven by instinct. You're making conscious choices." "Yes," Velix agreed. "We choose to survive. We choose to be strong. We choose to ensure that no threat can ever endanger our people again. Your species taught us these choices, Captain Chen. You showed us that in this universe, there are only predators and prey." Sarah realized that Velix was right in the most horrible way possible. Humanity had indeed taught the Zephyrians these lessons, not through direct instruction, but through example. Every human military doctrine, every tactical manual, every strategic principle had been based on the fundamental assumption that survival required the elimination of threats. The Zephyrians had simply taken these lessons to their logical extreme. As Sarah prepared to leave Kepler Prime for the last time, she received a final message from Earth Command. The content was brief, but its implications were staggering. Mission parameters exceeded. Commonwealth alliance secured. Humanity's galactic position established. Return when ready. The truth hit her like a physical blow. This had been the plan all along. Earth's leaders had never intended to simply help the Zephyrians defeat the Crimson Horde. They had seen an opportunity to gain influence over a galactic power, and they had taken it. By teaching the Zephyrians to fight, humanity had created a proxy army capable of dominating the galaxy. By sharing their military philosophy, they had ensured that Commonwealth expansion would be driven by human strategic thinking. Earth had gained a foothold in galactic politics without firing a shot or risking a single human life. The Zephyrians had asked for help, and humanity had given them exactly what they needed to survive. The fact that survival had required them to become monsters was simply the price of victory. As her transport ship prepared to depart Zephyrian space, Sarah looked back at the gleaming worlds of the Commonwealth. They were safe now, secure in their power and confident in their strength. They would continue to expand, continue to eliminate threats, continue to apply the lessons humanity had taught them. The galaxy was indeed saved from the Crimson Horde, but in saving it, humanity and their alien allies had created something far more dangerous. A militaristic empire that would brook no dissent, tolerate no threats, and show no mercy to anyone who stood in their way. The Zephyrians had asked for backup, and they had regretted it immediately. But their regret had come too late. They had learned too well, adapted too completely, embraced the philosophy of survival at any cost too thoroughly. In teaching them to fight, humanity had taught them to conquer. In showing them how to survive, humanity had shown them how to dominate. The gentle species that had once sought help had become the galaxy's new apex predators, and there was no going back. The universe would never be the same, and perhaps Sarah thought as her ship entered hyperspace that had been humanity's intention all along.